Hello everyone, welcome to this video for ChessBase Magazine, in which I would like to discuss with you the latest developments in the Tarrasch, and in particular after the first moves d4, d5, c4, e6, knight c3, c5. After c takes d5, we are not going for the real Tarrasch by recapturing on d5, but our focus will be on c takes d4, which leads to the so-called Schara von Hennig Gambit. Used to be very popular, went out of fashion for quite some years, but currently it's back, and it has to do with some new games played by Grishuk, amongst others. So let's just have a look what's going on. The two main moves here are queen a4 check and queen takes d4. Should be said d e6 is not good, not because of d takes c3, because there's e takes f7, and after king e7, funny move here is to make a knight promotion, as we are planning to go bishop g5 next and pick up the queen. That's not good, but what will black do is bishop takes e6 when the knight is still hanging, and after knight e4, knight c6, you have a fantastic position here as black. Free development, and the pawn on d4 is rather an asset than a weakness. So let's have a look first at the move queen takes d4, which is the most logical move to take back the pawn immediately. But then we go knight c6, making use of the pin. White will move the queen away, for instance, to d1, which is the most logical move. And now e takes d5. So I would say that taking the pawn on d5 with the queen is the main move. If you would take with the knight, there is knight f6. And this looks quite nice for black, because if you take on f6, queen takes f6, suddenly white has some development issues. He's not able to get his king out of the center. And for instance, after knight f3, we go bishop b4, and after bishop d2, we have won our pawn back with very good position. Bishop g4, rook d8, and so on. If you decide to go back to c3, well, then you waste a lot of time. And what I think is instructive is that you can just take on d1, trade of the queens, with the point that if you would take with a knight, there is knight b4, and the weakness on c2 is felt. If you go knight e3, then knight g4 is an excellent move, and very soon our knight will come on c2. This is like game over already. What you should do is take back with the king, but in such positions after bishop f5, you develop tremendous play for the pawn. Knight b4 can be played very soon, sometimes knight d4, you put a rook on d8. I think the position just plays itself, and you should not be bothered about being a pawn down. So after e d5, queen d5 is the main move, and now for a long period of time people went for bishop e6, and after queen takes d8, rook takes d8, e3, knight to b4. Looks like white is in time to consolidate with the move bishop b5 check. After you move the king, there is king f1 still, and you're anticipating that knight fork. Still, position looks pretty strange, but white is a pawn up, so this is not very convincing, and I'm a more fan of the move bishop d6, avoiding the exchange of queens, and the bishop is doing well here, and we are planning also to get our knight either to f6 or to e7. So white has a decision to make how to continue developing. Let's say if you play e4, we go knight f6, castles, castles, bishop d3, queen a5, and now after knight f3, we go bishop g4 with fantastic play. Like, we have possibilities of weakening the structure soon. Maybe queen h5, knight e5, rook d8, rook fe8. Very good chance at some point we will win the pawn back, and then it's clear that black's pieces are much more active. So e4 is not the right play to treat such positions. But if you continue develop here with bishop g5, knight g e7, queen d2 back, now I would like to go for the move h6, and this is a very important move. And the reason is that I want to go queen b6 actually, but after queen takes d6, well, bishop is hanging. We were looking for this counter threat with queen takes b2, but there's rook c1 still, and everything is still covered. But with the help of the move h6, we are trying to force the bishop to go away, and after queen b6 now, you don't have that resource, as both the rook and knight are hanging, and the bishop doesn't cover the c1 square. So you will have to move your rook to d1, let's say, but now we go bishop b4. And after knight f3, we can even sharpen things up now with g5, bishop g3, and here we castle with simple plans, bishop f5, rook d8, and so on. Like white has spent quite a number of moves with his queen, with the other pieces, and he's still quite some moves away from completing his development. So this is not looking too great. You may consider just taking on e7, which is the fastest move, of course, to keep the speed up. But after queen takes e7, rook d1, we bring our bishop to b4. And after a3, bishop a5, that pressure on the knight is still very unpleasant. Was seen in one correspondence game in which the move e3 was played. What I want to share with you is that the move b4 to unpin is not possible because of knight takes b4. A b4, queen b4, rook c1, bishop e6, e3, and we are going to increase the pressure on that knight on c3, and we also do that by playing our rook to rook from f8 to d8, attacking the queen, and let's say after queen c2, bishop d5, you see that the knight on e2 couldn't move. That's why we try to fianchetto our bishop, but after bishop d5, rook g1, bishop e4, suddenly white's position is totally falling apart. Of course, this is nice if you can remember it, but it's more about understanding and to figure out where the pieces belong. Instead of b4, white should play in a more modest way with e3, but then we also develop very quickly. Bishop g4, bishop e2, rook d8, queen c2, and rook takes d1. And here you have an unpleasant choice, because if you take with the queen, there is bishop takes c3, and in the end the pawn on a3 is hanging, so you win it back. And if you decide to go king takes d1, there is bishop e6 even, and after knight f3 you castle. You keep some pieces on the board, of course, and after bishop d3, rook d8, white's king is still in the middle. But here, well, there is definitely some play for the pawn. Knight d4 is a threat, of course. So I think this is looking okay, and well, a draw was agreed here, so probably there's a way to neutralize the threat. But in any case, I don't think white is ever able to do much with his extra pawn. Then, apart from doing something with the bishop, rook d1 is a possibility. And now after h takes g5, queen takes d6, queen b6 is interesting. And this has been played in a game of Wesley So against Grishuk, in which the move queen a3 was played to protect the pawn. If you would play queen d2, I want to show you the following line, which is not forced, but it's a great illustration of what may happen. White played another move with his queen to get out of the d-file, but now with g4 we are preventing the knight from getting developed. e3, bishop f5. If bishop d3, we always have knight b4. Queen c1, rook fd8. So we are offering the exchange of rooks so that we try to infiltrate. The d3 square is really weak. And if you go e4, we go back to e6. Let's say you go h3, and now knight e5. hg4, knight c6. And you see that the knights are becoming very unpleasant. We don't care about the number of pawns. And, well, the lines are becoming more and more tactical. But the one move I wanted to show to you here is a very cute idea of knight a1, threatening knight coming to c2, with the point that if queen takes b6, there's knight c2, king e2, bishop c4. Before recapturing the queen, you make sure that white will have to give up the rook. This was seen in a correspondence game, this move knight a1, between Wessel and Göring. And, well, white is just lost in all these lines. But it's about the spirit of play. Queen a3 is a better move, although the queen is a little bit offside there as well. Now after castles, white goes for, let's say, e3. And now knight b4. So here we see the disadvantage having the queen on a3. Queen a4, bishop f5. Now also bishop c2 is a threat. So white goes e4 anyway. Bishop e6. And now the move a3 was played, but here you can just go knight a2. And after knight takes a2, bishop takes a2 was played by Grishuk. But I want to also point out that queen takes b2 looks like a good move as well. You cannot really stick to your knight, as bishop b3 is likely to come soon anyway. Lot of tactical possibilities here again. But okay, just bishop takes a2, also possible. Now after queen b5 to deal with the threat of bishop b3, you can go queen e6. And now after bishop d3, white on move 19 is still not fully developed.